Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Semoto Podcast. Today with us, Angelica Ortega from Novify. How are you, Angelica?
Hi, Marco. Thanks for having me. Very well,
Absolute
and you?
pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks for spending a bit of time before Christmas with us. It's a great pleasure to have you. So, Angelica, let's dig
Absolutely.
into it straight away. Who's Novify? What do you guys do?
Absolutely. So I'm the founder of Novify, coming up to anniversary 2 years ago. So yeah, cheers to that. So I help go-to-market and technical teams being built for Web3 security startups and infrastructure as well. So very exciting world of recruitment. A lot of challenges, a lot of changes. So that's what I primarily do now. My background is quite corporate. I used to work in the business operations, but also in the recruitment agency side for almost a decade now. But I studied psychology. So everything interlaces very nicely to what I do today to help founders and candidates lay out their operations and roadmaps, as well as building teams.
Amazing. Thanks, Angelica. It's a new vertical for us at Semoto. We literally just launched the vertical for recruiters, and it took us time to select a restricted groups of top Web3 recruiters. We selected people like yourself because you're highly specialized and you have an amazing track record. Tell us a bit of Novify, what you specialize on, specifically in Web3, and how are you different from other agencies out there?
Absolutely. And I appreciate just going back to selecting the new vertical. So congrats for doing that, because it's a very important aspect for companies when they vetting recruitment companies, that they approach the right recruitment companies. There's many recruiters out there, very good ones, different approaches. So, you know, the USP in my end, and I believe the reason why people like working with me is the personalized approach, and be very targeted on the needs and really understanding the product that they working to build or they've launched. So understanding that and working in partnership and working together towards that goal really helps finding the right talent and also the right culture as well. So there's many AI tools out there. They're very necessary from both internal as a startup, but also on the recruitment agencies. So pretty much everybody is going to sort of act the same and operate the same as a recruitment company, but where you can differentiate yourself is your specialism, your network. If you are involved in the community, you will be able to understand what your actual client needs. So that's what I like to do, and I really enjoy understanding the challenges and really drill down on those, and not just send candidates for the sake of, because there's many good talent, even though there's a high shortage of it. But it is very hard to match the two. So especially on early stages, which like the first hires are so key. So that's how I would say that I'm different in certain way. Not everyone will like me, but yeah, I'm very focused to really understand what I'm doing, and it is difficult. The Web3 space really changes. So
No, no,
yeah.
I can vouch for what you just said, because the way that we met, we got introduced without saying any names, but by a layer one, well-established layer one, and exactly the reason why they trusted you is because you were involved with the whole ecosystem. You did your research, you really did educate yourself, and you could help them because of that. And not everyone is keen to spend time and do the extra mile. So I believe this is why Novify has been so successful. Obviously,
Thanks.
recruiters cover, I mean, some covers a bit of everything. That might not be the best strategy, but then there are company highly specialized like yours that select verticals. There are people that select only C-suite. Maybe there are bigger fees. I don't know. Other people only do sales. What about Novify? What's the sweet spot for you guys?
Absolutely. So, from individual contributor to C-suite is something that I'm very comfortable with. However, what I really see the trends at the moment is sort of mid-senior to head of levels. Touching base on some C-suite as well. The very junior roles is something that I believe startups can really find themselves, and recruitment fees are not cheap. So I always, suggest that perhaps the most junior hires, unless it's a very tricky one and very tailored, can be done by those operations or internal teams. And that's my view, it's not for everybody. So my sweet spot is for someone that has a run of 4 to 5 years, at least three in the Web3 space, maybe a bit less sometimes if they educate themselves a lot as well, and you can see the culture and the energy to enter into the ecosystem. But yes, I really like to touch base and look after candidates that are on the C suite space, because they come from the Web2 space, so they're highly experienced,
You're
very
trying to
professional.
pivot into this new world.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that is very interesting, and I'm very versatile. So as much as I like to be very tailored, because that's what really companies benefit from, I'm also be able to go out of my ways, and knowing what good looks like and understanding the need, you can go out and having a good network of builders and go to market people really allows you to do that. And it's always very important to be honest as well, with the founders. If I'm seeing, I'm frustrated here, I'm not able to find what you want, let's revisit, let's get more people in to kind of give us some advice. I haven't found that very often, thankfully, but it's always really good to keep that communication going and to take talent very seriously, because that's essentially the ecosystem that you're building in your company and what your company is actually going to be in the future. So,
No,
yeah,
absolutely. You build the fundamental structure of the company with the right people. Out of
absolutely.
curiosity, Angelica, how is Web2 recruitment different from Web3 recruitment? Do you see any major changes, or the core is the same, the relationship with the founder and the candidate? Tell us a bit about that.
Absolutely. So there are fundamental changes that I see that are, for example, speed and changes and adaptability into the recruitment processes on the Web3 side. But obviously, I spent 8 years on the Web2 corporate and startup environment, and it's a steady growth. And for the candidates, there's a slower pace on the permanent side, but on the contract side, is very quick as well. You being with your background in TradeFi, things move very quickly, and you need specialists coming in very quickly. However, the changes seem to be slower. So what I find on the Web3 side of things is that the speed and the changes, you have to adapt very quickly with the talent, and the shortage of talent is huge, because, since the Bitcoin approval back in January, we found that there has been a huge increase of demand of recruitment, and job postings raised 20%. So these will mean that they'll need a lot of talent, but actually there isn't that many talent coming from Web3, which most of the startups are looking for Web3 specialists. So you need to talk a lot about and educate the founders, because a lot of the founders in Web3 versus the Web2 side are more junior, and this comes from a very good point of view, because you see builders coming straight out of college, but there has some detriment on not understanding the sort of structure and many years of experience in the background. So you need to explain, right, some talent can have the Web3 component, but you would be benefited by a Web2 specialist that can come in and implement it and learn as we go. So this continuous learning has to happen in Web3, and you can't get stuck and stagnant in the same processes. So this is the huge difference that I find, the speed that we go onto the Web3 space, and the change of mind of the protocols, and it depends of where the startup is at. Are they mainnet? Are they on testnet? They'll have different needs, and you really need to adapt very quickly to create that hype and be in a good position when it comes to live product launch. And
it's actually a great point, and it would be cool to dig a little bit deeper into depending on the phase in which the startup is, how change the hiring process. What I wanted to ask you, Angelica, we're going towards year end. This is actually our last podcast of the year. It's great to have you as a Christmas podcast, pretty much.
No Christmas hats, though.
No, we forgot the Christmas hats. You're right. You need a Christmas jumper. But as we end the year, as we're looking already at the next one coming on, give us a picture of what the job market looked in 2024 and a bit of a vision of what, in your opinion, is going to look like next year. What are the areas where you see growth? And geographically as well, what do you think is going to be hot next year? Because a lot of things are changing from a regulatory and political perspective. Obviously, it's going to impact the job market.
Absolutely. So we'll do geographically hotspots later on. Let's focus a little bit on where we see this going on 2025. And as we've seen already, there's so much changes all the time. So this is not like set in stone, but I've seen and I've communicated with other recruitment experts that next year is going to be huge, and the online recruitment setup is going to increase over 280%. So we can imagine the explosion on growth that we're going to see on 2025 by job postings to acquisition to a lot of recruitment requirements. So in terms of where I've seen that companies have really drilled into, and the realization is the marketing and go-to-market experts into the ecosystem. And a lot of the sticky points that I've seen is some companies getting into the product launch and not having much a social media exposure, and it's okay to be working under the scenes a little bit, but the element of community that the Web3 has, that the Web2 is not as necessary sometimes on the Web3, because everyone is so out there and posting a lot on what they're doing, milestones and partnerships, and you see a lot of logos getting together, which is great. Which also needs some backing too. I believe that the community element, the marketing strategy is not set in the very early stages, because they are focused on building, on getting really strong product design and engineering teams in. So what I really see that is going to happen in 2025, it's all those marketing leaders coming into those startups to help them go out to market and really showcase what's good about the product in a normal language, not so technical language as well, because certain companies we see out there, it takes me a lot of time to understand what they're actually building. And it has to be, you need a very technical white paper to go through and read through the GitHub repos to really drill in the intricacies and nuances of the product. But when you are expressing what the product does to the normal audience, I say normal, but to the non-technical public like myself, you need to make it quite interactive and understanding to those. So I believe that the marketing teams are key commerce to those companies. So I really see that happening in 2025, and a lot of companies are realizing, and this is something I created a guide early this year for founders on how to build your first marketing team, because I see how key it is to get the message out in order to create those partnerships and create that hype in every single step of your product. And it doesn't always have to be finished to be able to be out. And having the really strong roles like dev roles, some companies are very strong advocates to it. I believe it's an amazing role to have. Some companies don't use it as much, but you can see on the hackathon actually, which is where we met, you get a really strong community there. So you really need those developer relations that can communicate out to the communities, to the devs, so be very technical, but to the non-technical too. So this is a really hot role that I believe is very important, and maybe not in the really first stages because the fundings are quite important and you need to prioritize. But I believe this is going to be very big, and I believe it should be very big. To go on to, and I'll come into the geography in a minute. One thing now that we're coming in 2025, and because the speed of Web3 doesn't allow a lot of time for planning in certain things, one of the suggestions that I bring into the founders now coming to 2025 is to really have a strong roadmap on the recruitment side, and I believe it's not done enough because there's no time, and I appreciate all of that, and that's why I think operation recruitment, HR internal, but also the external agencies like myself and many great others that are out there should be planning and understanding the 6, 9, 12, 24 month plan as to how do I want my company to look like, and who is the talent that I need, and make it very granular on how each role entails and how does it look like and what culture do I want to create, because this is so essential as building the product, because these people are going to come in and shape your company. And sometimes I feel that not everybody, of course, some companies might come and I need this immediate role, a head of marketing, because I need to go out to market and create those marketing strategies, build those events, build a brand, and I need to rebrand because there's a new product launch. And this is just immediate and reactive sort of way of hiring. And that just creates stress. And sometimes it needs to be like that. But if you plan ahead of time, I have a new product launching in Q3, you should be planning 2 quarters in advance to get someone in to understand your company, the culture, to be able to create that hype that then in Q3 is going to be a stable sort of ecosystem to be able to communicate out. So I believe that a really strong roadmap, subject to review on a very regular basis with your recruiters and with your operations team and growth team and all the suite essentially, is going to be very key. And sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but just to touch base on the geography and the hot geographies, it really depends on how we look at this. However, we're globally distributed, and that can be a challenge, and this can be a benefit because the talent pool is just exploded, right? You can hire anybody anywhere in the world, which is really positive because the number of people that you can hire is higher, but it reduces the chance of how am I going to do this? You're not as targeted anymore. So I believe being globally distributed is a great way to go because people want to work remote, and they'll travel if they have to. But where I see the most highest currently and where I see this coming on 2025, I mean, most of the roles, 20% of the roles are in APAC. So really strong base there. My most worked markets are EU and the US, and in the US being New York, San Francisco are the hottest pools on Web3
Sorry to interrupt
side.
you. So we're talking about the companies here. So the companies, you see the pool of companies being Europe and US, but the talent pool that gets hired, you see a strong presence in APAC, right?
Yes, we're on a completely candidate-led market, and so this is they're spread worldwide, as much as the companies, of course. But the companies hiring mostly, you will see New York, Brooklyn has a really strong Web3 pool, but I see a really strong increase in Berlin in Europe side, in London, France as well is starting to grow a lot as well. But there's certain points, hot points, that like a San Francisco or New York based or London, that the salaries are absolutely astronomic, right? So certain companies will opt to go outside of these hot pools because it is very, very competitive, and certain companies that have really strong comp benefits, it gets really hard to attract talent or to
But I
attract
guess that what
talent
is
out of
happening
those.
is exactly the definition of decentralization, and you really end up hiring pure talent. It's not, and you pay for the quality of talent. You don't pay just because the cost of living in New York or London needs to justify it. Somebody can be an amazing developer and being in Vietnam. Somebody can be an amazing sales guy and being in San Francisco or Nigeria. You ended up truly paying for quality, not for compensating for where they live.
Absolutely. Yes, certain talent pools in Africa are really strong, and sometimes it is really hard due to visas and locations to hire people from those pools. So I have some great connections, developers that work out there, and it's amazing and to see that, and it's very hopeful for the future, and this is why most of us are part of it, right? Because we want the digital future decentralized, but also a recruitment talent acquisition to be also decentralized, without losing the relationship component, which I always stress they cannot all be purely decentralized, because we are humans, so we can't decentralize ourselves. um, Getting a bit philosophical there, but yeah, to your point as well, though. I need to make a point into the inflation side. I think we need to find the balance, because some companies are paying astronomical salaries, and perhaps we need to be very careful, thinking I'm going to pay 10 times more of what the other company is to attract that talent. Right, we need to be careful there, because that just creates an instability into the market when we inflate salaries. So we need to still be careful with that, and set certain boundaries and salary bandings that are according to the level, because sometimes you see, a marketing manager that should be paid around the $100K, 120. I see marketing managers paid 180, which, for a marketing lead, head of marketing, is what it should be paid, usually. So, we need to be careful there,
Yeah.
because then everything is going to increase, and that's going to have a
I
future
think with the
impact.
industry becoming more mature, and correct me if I'm wrong, and also more careful on the money that gets spent, VCs are tighter, foundation are not releasing money as easily as before. There is going to be
Yes.
more of a cautious approach even on the hiring. Um, let's
Absolutely.
switch on a gear and let's try to give more useful advice from both the candidate and and the founder perspective. I have to say, I'm actually surprised that you haven't mentioned Dubai. We see quite a lot going on
Oh,
out there. I
big
was
miss.
expecting there was a not topic, um, or not
Yes.
full of startups at least.
Absolutely, I completely missed to mention that, and absolutely, I have a lot of connections out there, which I really hold dear to my heart. That it's and I follow a lot of people that are really great over there. And obviously, you having a foot there as well. So my apologies in
No, no,
advance. Dubai is leading incredibly, and the adoption as well of the use cases, and it is one to look at and look out. A lot of companies are moving there as well, because they're offering great packages and great setups. So having a politic mindset of building and creating a digital future and acquiring and putting it into practice what they pray in, it's really admirable. So certainly Dubai and the Abu Dhabi and the
In the
UAE.
region are pushing really hard. They're really going for the approach of build it and they will come. No,
Absolutely.
completely agree on that. Okay, so let's jump on the shoes of the startup founders.
Yeah.
I just created my company. Things are finally moving. What are the first steps in hiring? First of all, would you advise them to start with fractional position and then slowly move into other roles? Should they start with the C-suite position, COO and CTO, or build a strong sales team, a strong marketing team? What are your advices?
Absolutely, and I'll try to do this high level, and perhaps we can do part two on
Yeah.
this, or I can send you my decks as well. I touched on a little bit as well on the planning of this, and I think as you launch your product, as you are, 4 to 5 people into the company, and depending on what vertical you are, right? If you are marketing led company, or if you are security, or if you're infrastructure, you will prioritize this in different roles, and that's something that your C-suite should be sitting down and spending a great amount of time planning into this. Obviously, as you can see on most of companies, the engineering teams, the product teams are the first ones to be built. 1 or 2 people that are quite experienced, doesn't have to be C-suite, but someone with a great deal of experience that has done something like this before, or very close to, are the first ones to come in. And sometimes you cannot hire someone on a full-time basis, and this is where, as you touched based on, fractional roles come in. So sometimes you can pay 200K for a CMO to come in, hire fractional, but that can be really close to you, because the danger of getting a marketing agency very early on is that they don't have a lot of time to spend with you, so you will be spending a lot of time communicating and waiting on a response because they have other clients. If they do have a one person dedicated solely for you, then great. But you need to be considering and asking yourself questions on how much do I need this person? How much time do I need them? And if I need them 24/7, as it were, consider investing some money into getting a full-time person, and perhaps you should be doing that with your connections closely, without the recruiter on the first place. And this is against me. However, in very early stages that we're talking about now, it is hard to justify the recruitment fees, right? And then once you have the small team, 10 to 15, or even like 8 to 10 with a 10 million funding, you can afford yourself to get someone that is really good at talent and has a really strong setup that can come in and help you until you get your operations recruitment person internally, because I do believe that is very necessary as well, because you need to set up your ATSs, tracking systems, and an organization without an operations built up is not really set up for success there, because as much as we don't want the bureaucracy and all the levels, which the Web3 space is really focusing on, trying to make it more flat structure and everyone contributing, you need a certain level of structure in every organization and ways to evaluate performance. So this is why I really believe that having someone at the higher level first, quite experienced, is like the main piece of the puzzle. And I always like to represent it, the first hires have to be the main pieces of the puzzle, because then you can identify on your roadmap where those leaders need help on, or they're not as enjoyable doing certain tasks, and maybe a marketing manager or someone on a lower level that they still need a bit more experience, they can come in then. So you build first from the top and start building then, and create that lovely puzzle that creates sense. Some of the mistakes I've seen, unfortunately, are trying to hire someone junior and then realize actually I should have get someone in that yes, exactly, that understands how to create a strategy, how to create the funnel, how to create the processes, because setting up processes is very important, and understanding how to collaborate on a startup manner. So having those key hires at the very early stage are very important. We're talking about only skill sets here, but culture is something absolutely fundamental that founders really need to really drill down. What's the way? What are the ways that I want to operate and known as, and hire people that really abide by that. Because if you don't really connect, it's like a marriage, getting your co-founders in. If you don't really have the same vision, the same mindset, doesn't matter how great skilled you are, there's not going to be cohesion. And you really need a really strong ecosystem and a psychology safe environment. And this is a really strong term that I really believe in. And the psychology safety is having an environment that you can provide feedback regardless of the circumstances or outcomes. So I'm not going to be afraid of, Mr. CEO, I don't agree with this process. Why don't we do it this way due to XYZ reasons?
That's an amazing point. I think you're touching on something that is extremely important. One thing we notice, and I experienced it on my own skin, if companies in Web3, obviously, they lack the maturity that Web2 brings to the table. And don't get me wrong, there are terrible Web2 companies to work for, but because Web3, it tend to be managed in an extremely fast way by younger people as well, sometimes culture is not done properly. Or sometimes they obsess on culture to the point that it gets kind of fake and people don't feel that they're represented anymore. But the effect of it is that you can have all the money in the world and you can keep hiring, but these people are going to leave if they don't feel not even welcome, but they don't feel that the culture of the company represents them. And this is not about bike schemes or a fruit basket in the office every Friday. They really have to feel part of the company. And I think this one is going to take a completely different podcast just to address the cultural part. But you're right, I mean, it makes the job of the recruiter even harder. Another thing that I would love to touch with you is the debate, and I think is quite emphasized when you talk about marketing. A lot of companies that approached us because we have great recruiters, but we have some amazing marketing agencies on Semoto. And a question that a lot of people ask us, is always, should I hire a CMO or should I give this piece of work to somebody else? And you touched on it. It really depends on the stage and it really depends on the amount of work that you need to be done. I think if you want to have full control, if you want to really be hands-on the process, this is when a recruiter can really find the right person for you. Shall we touch a little bit on the financial aspect of it? For a startup, money are always the priority. They need to be careful on how they spend. Would you be able to give us an indication? Let's say if we talk about, again, marketing and sales, the hot topic if you want to grow. What do you think? Let's focus on Europe. At least you want to give us some indication on Asia as well or other markets. As a founder, what should I budget in order to get some people in?
Absolutely. In order to create marketing teams and sales teams, you mean? So depends again, and sorry to be not very straight to the point because it depends where you are at as a startup, right? On early stages, having the two main positions that I consistently keep hiring for and is an essential need. It's a head of business development and a head of marketing. Call it CMO, head of marketing, marketing lead. I like Web3 because titles don't mean as much anymore. It's about the outcomes and what you provide and the value add, and it's just about the seniority and how many years have you been doing that, because I've seen amazing marketing managers as title that they could be perfectly be a CMO because they've been since day one. So the two main components is get someone senior on the business development, how you attract and bring in new projects and new developers. There's a really interesting position that I consistently hire for, which is ecosystem as well. You don't need to hire head of development, business development, or ecosystem on the first rounds on pre-seed, because the founder should be doing these efforts, and that's something that it depends again. If your co-founders or sole CEO founder is a very technical person and really struggles to create those relationships and attract businesses, do hire a really strong head of business development, because these are the key to grow your business, right? So but if your founder is really great at creating new relationships, bring VCs into you, has a really strong network of VCs as well, you don't really need to spend that money. So you need to be savvy on knowing yourself, and this introspection process is very important in startups. What I'm good at and what I can really spend wisely my energy to be able to build the company where I want to be at in 6, 9, 12, 24 months, versus if I just come in and say, oh, I just need this because I'm really stressed. I need to raise for Series A and I don't have many VC connections. Let's bring a head of business development. Perhaps you just need a contractor, or perhaps you need to speak with your VCs and give you advice on how to approach this. So leaving egos aside, I believe that it's very important, because we don't know everything and we're constantly evolving. And for a founder, the qualities of a founder, and I see it in a lot of them, is to be humble. Actually, I don't know this. Let me ask a few people. And then the very important thing from a founder is to stick with that vision, because if you keep changing, then that creates a really confusion around the company, and the morale is going to be affected, and then is when we're having sadly people being let go due to a lack of focus. So a lot of answers to your one question, but in terms of funding, when you do have your first, and we see crazy amount of fundings in the space, right? So for pre-seeds, I see 9 to 10 million. You do have time to think about where to spend, a very little quarter of that amount in hiring key people to help you out that can complement
right
you.
Fit. No, makes a lot of sense. What a surprise! We're running late. This is what happened when you put a Spaniard and an Italian on a podcast. We bloody talk ages.
I prevent you. I did tell you about that. We'll do part two, I think.
Offer of a second episode with you, because we really just touched the surface here, and I think we're giving valuable advice.
We forgot the candidates, which is part that I love.
This is how I want to end, Angelica. Next year, market is moving. There's more regulation coming. There are new figures that are going to be extremely needed from compliance. Sales is going to pick up. So give a 1-minute pitch to the candidates. How to prepare, what to look after, what to avoid.
To stand out in this market, which is extremely candidate-led, and there's a lot of great talent out there, and it is very stressful on how to navigate the next opportunity, is get being seen. And with that, I mean, create your community, go to events, go to hackathons, create your network and be known, because a lot of the founders, what they do is check reference your social proof, which is very important. And create your reputation and your brand by being out there, and just not be behind the scenes, because you can be an amazing sales director, but if they don't know you and you don't contact people and speak to different people on a weekly basis, and if you can't weekly basis, at least on a monthly basis, trace 2025, we have a lot of events coming up. Create your map on where you do want to be seen. There's a lot of opportunities to be a speaker in events. So my advice would be, keep learning, keep getting advice onto where to get new academic recognitions, or like develop yourself by reading. We're so lucky, everything is on YouTube. We can self-teach ourselves, but where I really learn is by speaking with founders, speaking with people in the ecosystem, and get different ideas to be able to create your own opinion on things, and be very opinionated and stand by that, and keep learning and keep humble, and speak with your trusted recruiter as well, because they'll keep you in mind for new opportunities, because if you don't speak to them, chances are that there's other candidates and they won't get as seen.
That's gold. I mean, you need to be out there, because either a company is going to notice me, or the recruiters will see what I'm up to. They will see my posting. They will see me at every event networking with people, so they will automatically think of me when it's time to offer a job to somebody. So it's absolutely right. Angelica,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Novify for being the first recruiting agency on Semoto. The full profile of Novify is available at semoto.io. We're going to post the link at the bottom of this podcast. Please get in touch with Angelica at an early stage, because she can help you planning your whole journey in Web3. Angelica,
thank you so much, Marco. A pleasure.